เริ่มกองประชุมไปเนาะการฝึกฝนเกี่ยวกับเป็นวิธีเคลื่อนไหวด้านสิทธิมนุษยชนซึ่งท่านศาสตราจารย์จอชคูเปอร์ที่เป็นผู้แนะนำให้พวกเขาชี้แจงศึกษาวิธีต่อไปพัวพันกับระดับสากลโดยเฉพาะโมเมนต์ระดับสากลทั่วไปส่วนใหญ่ก็แม่นเรื่อง NGO ต่างๆที่เคลื่อนไหวกันทั่วโลกเกี่ยวกับปัญหาสิทธิมนุษย์เอิ้นส่วนรวมนะเอิ้นว่า Civil Society พวกกัน NGO ต่างๆนั่นเป็นภาคส่วนของCivil Society ทั้งนั้น Civil Society เนี่ยมันหมายความว่าสังคมทุกประเทศเนี่ยมันทั่วโลกเนี่ยมันมีสามประเภทสังคมเกี่ยวกับรัฐบาลเกี่ยวกับการปกครองบริหารประเทศแล้วก็สังคมอันภาคที่2มันสังคมธุรกิจ business แล้วนอกนั้นเรื่องประชาชนเนี่ยชุมนุมชนเนี่ยเขาก็ต้องมีสังคมด้วยกันพระเจ้าเลยมีจำแนกออกมาว่าตั้งแต่พุทธสมัยศตวรรษที่19นะเรียกว่า Civil Society อันนี้เป็นสังคมสำหรับ Civil Sector หรือว่าพลเรือนบกขึ้นกับรัฐบาลบกขึ้นน้ำธุรกิจเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งนี้ แล้วเป็นผู้มีกว้างขวางในการพัวพันนับเป็นร้อยองค์การพุ่นละแต่ว่าเป็นก็อยู่ยังเงาอยู่ข้าพเจ้ากำลังพยายามสักเข้ามาให้เป็นผู้นำของทีมใหม่ของเราทีมรุ่นใหม่นี้รุ่นข้าพเจ้าขออภัยนอกขออนุญาตก้าวเป็นภาษาอังกฤษเพื่อเป็นได้เข้าใจนะI think we'd like to begin this afternoon session, but before I do so, I'd like to say a few words so that some of you who might not know about Dr. Joshua Cooper, how he comes to be here with us. Professor Cooper is known internationally as an expert in the field of human rights. Not only that, he's done a lot of work, and he's doing a lot of work on behalf of the poorest sections of the population of the world, the underprivileged and the disadvantaged, and especially the what they call the Indigenous people. ภาษาลาวเขาก็จะเป็นชนชาติเป็นพื้นเมืองของแต่ละประเทศทั่วโลก As Wan Lang said this morning, we weren't for Dr. Cooper, this meeting would not be possible today. And I would like to add to that, if it weren't for Dr. Cooper, we wouldn't have had lunch. Because while we were busy chatting away, he was the one who brought the lunch in. Thank you very much. And other than his expertise and knowledge, his wide circle of associations and contacts, he's a miracle man. He's not like us. We have to do a lot of work and pre-plan and plan before we get to see those VIPs in the world, the decision makers of the world. All Dr. Cooper has to do is pick up the phone and say, I'll be there in 15 minutes. You better believe it. So he's a miracle worker. I'd like to learn that trait from you, but I guess I'm a little too late now. Because I'm saying that because of your youth, and just by coincidence, maybe it's a lucky coincidence that we're trying to form our younger generation, our next team of leaders. And you see a good part of them here today, beginning with Van Lang, Bun Leung, Rami, and of course Dr. Bunton. And then we got a new addition, Maitri Sanandikon. And Dr. Cooper is, he wears many hats, but I think my most favorite for him is professor and director of the Hawaii Institute for Human Rights and Indigenous People. He's from Hawaii, and if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be in Hawaii. so think about it, you know. How about changing places? You go to Hawaii, you come and help Lao people over here forever, okay? Until it's done. Yeah, that's my, that's all I can ask right now of you, okay? But I'll take care of Hawaii for you. Take good care of it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give Dr. Cooper a good hand of welcome. One more thing I forgot to say, that Dr. Cooper's got his heart in the right place. Not just his brain, not just his experience, but he got a heart on the right side of the chest, which is a good sign. And he's here, you know, whenever we need him, we just call him, but he's a very busy man. And I'd like to welcome him myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aloha. It's an honor to be here today. It's a pleasure to be with you and see so many faces that I've seen around the world, really in the last 2 years. So in a way, this is the beginning of our relationship. And he was telling me earlier, what should he call me? I'm like, you can always just call me just Josh. Joshua's fine. And it's an honor to be an ally with you for advocating for human rights. It's an honor to be able to forge a common future that's rooted in human rights. And I look forward to continuing our partnership, which we have recently begun. I've got a shorter time today, so I'm going to just cover some of the big things that we can look at and review a little bit. We began working just a little while ago, and the idea was looking at the opportunities at the United Nations that exist today. So what was really important is, what happens is the government of Laos comes to different mechanisms of the UN and gives their story. But the truth is, unfortunately, civil society and people's movements don't know what's going on everywhere around the world. So I do appreciate being a lecturer and a professor, in that I'm able to take what I normally teach to students that they learn for grades and turn it into good for what you need to improve the daily living conditions in Laos and to make life better for your people. And so I am fortunate that I do get to sometimes rub elbows with famous, fancy people, but a lot of times it's just good hard work and a little bit of luck. This morning I was coming here, and the trains were all delayed, if you caught the trains. And I was sitting there going, I recognize that person right there. I wonder, I think Hawaii. And I was just like, well, I'll just wait. I know everybody wants their privacy on Sunday and relaxing. And he turns around to me and starts talking. What are you doing here? It's been so long. And I'm going, oh my gosh. It's actually President Barack Obama's sister's husband. His name's Conrad. We went to school together in Hawaii. So it's kind of fun to see how small the world really is. So sometimes you don't have to call him. You just meet him on the metro on the way to the meeting. So it was a nice, good morning Sunday. He was on his way to DuPont Circle to get something. So that was nice. But with the work that we do, it is about being in the right place at the right time. And my goal in our partnership is for me to be able to tell you where you should be, where you could be, and what we can do. Some people feel the UN doesn't work, or doesn't feel this international advocacy is important, or thinks that the rest of the world doesn't care. But one of the things that's really important is to know what to say where, and more important, to know what each meeting or person you're meeting with can do. If you go to the wrong meeting and ask for something and then get upset because nothing happens, it doesn't always work at the UN, that's for sure. The problem and the weakness of the United Nations is it's 193 states who are its members. And all those states don't want each other to talk about each other's bad problems. So it is a difficult space, but there are lots of mechanisms in the UN where you can really speak truth to power and make sure the world knows the truth, and more importantly, where you can get your message out and build your movement to be even larger. And so when we first started working, the first meeting that came up was the Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, otherwise known as CERD. CERD was reviewing Laos, and the interesting thing was there's never been civil society there before. So what we were able to do was a couple of things. We met with the 18 members of the committee, and the good news about the treaty bodies is they're experts. They know universal international human rights law. All you have to do is give them the facts about what's happening in the country, because they review all the countries, but they don't know everything about every country. And this is also the element of partnership I wanted to share with you. You are the experts. You in this room are the most important part of this entire political process. You always have to realize that. In a way, just like lunch, I'm just that little sweet chili that you add on the side. I make it taste a little better, but you're the core. You're the most important. So if you ever do meet other people who say, I'm going to do everything for you and make your life better, they can't. It's only you. But we can give that a little extra spice and make it all taste a little better, and we can move forward together. So it's an honor to work with you, and I think that's an important part of our relationship. At CERD, we were able to then bring the most relevant information to the members of the committee. That means they knew exactly what to ask, and more importantly, what to follow up with. So when Lao would respond one way, they would say, but isn't this true? We're able to send them emails to talk with them during the meeting, but also after the meeting. And the most important thing we did was we actually briefed them. And when we briefed them at the meeting, we had a side event, like lunch that we just had, where we could speak directly to them and give them the language for the questions, but more importantly, the language for the recommendations. And then those recommendations are really kind of like a GPS. I think many of you use GPS to get around in most cars. It is the roadmap to realizing rights in Laos. So we were able to participate first at CERD, but that was only the first. The other time I was able to meet with everyone was we did trainings in Hagen and Bouton and Marcos's house. Then the next month we actually went to Geneva. And then the month after that was also important. Asean is growing now. They have a goal of 2015 to be one economic community. But the problem with the world is they always look at economics, but not about equality. They look at economy, but not equity. So we were able to participate with Sitikon, who I guess he got a little sick, but it was great to meet him. I met Sitikon first in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh, at the ASEAN Civil Society Forum. And that Civil Society Forum, the People's Conference, and is a very important meeting because there, all of the members of ASEAN, the civil society, come and speak together about the issues they care about: women's rights, human trafficking, focusing on the issue of the dams to make sure that the Mekong flows between all the countries, to take care of the fish so that future generations have enough to eat with nutrients and protein. But what's most important is there's a new mechanism. It's the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, or ICHR. And now there's a body in ASEAN that's supposed to focus on human rights. So we were there to be able to make sure that some of the issues of human rights in Laos were present. This year, we didn't go. It was in Brunei, Dar es Salaam. But I think in the future, as we're talking about what we should do, that's the next step. We should really concentrate for the next couple of years, because it will take place in Burma, and we want to build that relationship with their civil society. But more importantly, in a couple of years, it'll actually take place in Laos. So we need to organize to be able to put the pressure so that that meeting it's very important that we're there and we're participating because it only happened every 10 years. So the ASEAN Civil Society Conference and People's Forum is a very valuable mechanism that we can go to. So I've been fortunate to be able to participate with you there. At that meeting, it was actually the first time that Laos was able to participate, because some people did come from Laos, but the government told them they couldn't participate in that meeting, and they sent them back home. But since Alliance for Democracy in Laos was there, Sitipon was there, we actually combined to meet with the NGOs from Vietnam to speak together about their common challenges. So if ADL isn't at the ASEAN People's Forum, no one is there representing Laos. So I think that's very important. They also adopted a new declaration, the ASEAN Declaration on Human Rights. And it's a tool we should use when bringing up the issues to the Lao government, citing that mechanism more and more. So that's been very valuable as well. Then I'm very fortunate to just return from Australia and to see my friends again. It was wonderful to meet all of them. And on the first day we were together, we had a forum, and it was just a discussion point to say, what's going on, what do you care about, why are we doing this work, and what can we do in the future? And it kind of shows the strategy of what I'm hoping we can do. It's great that you are international. That means we can organize in each region without sending everyone everywhere. That means we can be cost effective as well as creatively effective. So if there's a meeting in ASEAN, and it's going to take place there, it doesn't make sense that we fly Bunton from Europe. It makes sense that Australia just goes up. If there's a meeting in New York that we just came from, it makes sense that Tennessee comes up, and not that others fly over. But then it also means we talk more often and make sure everyone knows what's happening at each meeting and making the same points that we're speaking on one page. So Australia was amazing, to be able to hear the issues, to talk to the people, a lot of frustrations about what has and has not worked. But the most important point was, after discussing, the next day going to work, where we went to Canberra, we met with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, met with the specific person who's in charge. There's actually a human rights dialogue between Laos and Australia. It happens every 3 years. It is important to be at the meetings, to meet with DFAT, to be able to tell them what the main issue is before, but more importantly afterwards as well, because they have a relationship as a donor, and we can put pressure on Laos through that annual meeting. That will actually take place next year in 2014. So we found that out at the meeting. We were able to meet with them, and that's the next level of what we should strategize, is for the annual human rights dialogue. That's also something we can push other governments, that we ask the European Union to have an annual dialogue on human rights. That while we're here in Washington, D.C., that we aim for a Congress and talk to the U.S. Congress. And these are things that we can do. In fact, I just got the names this week of where everyone's from in the United States. And that's good. But there's definitely not enough of us in this room. But what I propose in 2014, next year, is that anyone that wants to come, that we have lobby days in Washington, D.C. I'll get this room again. We'll meet on a Sunday. We'll do a training on how to speak to your members of Congress, how to speak to the senators and the House of Representatives, have maybe 2 or 3 bills that we'd like to have. There's one already now called the Human Rights Act in Vietnam. We should aim for a Human Rights Act in Laos that connects all of the funding to have a human rights component, and to be able to make sure that before they give money, they actually make sure they respect human rights. Another one is called the Medzinski case, focusing on Russia, but it can extend to other countries where anyone who commits human rights atrocities can never come to the United States. And if they have any assets in America, we'll be able to seize them. So this is very important as well. But what we really need to do is just raise the awareness. So one of the things we're doing tomorrow and the next days is we're meeting with the U.S. State Department. That's what everyone should do. But we're also meeting with USAID, the one that gives aid. And that's also what we did in Australia. We met with AusAid. And there's 2 ways to think of it. Now most of you are citizens in Australia, United States, New Zealand, France, Canada, we should make sure when your tax dollars are being given to Laos that they actually go to the right communities and villages and provinces. And the truth is, you know Laos better than any of even those foreign ministries. So when you tell them where money should go, and we organize that way, we can be effective where communities would go, we wouldn't have gotten this school, we wouldn't have gotten this water pump, we wouldn't have gotten this assistance regarding trafficking. But we know the people outside of Laos were organizing for us and making sure the funds go in. Right now, the government, of course, is full of corruption, according to Transparency International and most other sources, and we know the money doesn't get to the people. So what we really need to do, besides talking to the AID programs, most importantly, is meeting with your members of Congress. Because there's a couple things. They don't lose anything by working with you. You're a citizen and you vote. They can get points. And in elections these days, they're so close. Every election in America is getting closer and closer. So you can be a swing vote. You can be someone that they have to think about every October and November. Wow, have I met with the Lao community yet? Have I talked to them? What do they need? And the truth is that'll be very valuable. If we're really well organized, you can combine with the Cambodians and the people struggling even against the Vietnam, the Kampuchea Khmer Krom who I've helped, and you'd be a voting bloc that in every district people would care about. So what I hope we can do in the future is meet like this on a Sunday. We have the PowerPoint. There's video tools. I'm fortunate enough to be a legislative coordinator for Amnesty International in Hawaii. And I can teach you how to lobby really quickly. Just, we can have a lunch. We could role play. I could be a senator. You can walk into my office, tell me what you want. Practice really quick. It's called the ABCs of advocacy. And then the next day on Monday, everyone goes to meet on Capitol Hill. Then we meet Monday night and debrief, hear what's going on, what we should do next. And then that gives us what we can do, not only here in the United States, but model that as well in France. We're looking at that for October, November coming up. But it's an important thing to let elected officials know you vote, you care, but more importantly, there's another currency in politics, and that's information and knowledge. And that's what you really have on Laos that no one else has. So I don't want you to ever forget that, and more importantly, always remember that in our work. The one last thing I'd like to talk about with the 5 minutes I have remaining is just what we did on Friday and how valuable that is in the future. So the first meeting we had was with the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The High Commissioner for Human Rights is based in Geneva, of course, and we're all familiar with that. But the High Commissioner for Human Rights in New York is also special because the people who are the experts there, they brief someone who is the Secretary General. And the Secretary General rotates among the 5 regions of the world. They do Western European and others, Eastern European and others, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Right now, who's the Secretary General? Ban Ki-moon, and he's from Asia. He's also in his 2nd term. Means he can't get elected again. This is our chance to be able to say, you want to have a legacy as a human rights defender. He already speaks out a lot on women's rights. He speaks a lot on climate justice because he understands the importance of our environment. But now he can speak as a human rights defender to be able to speak up for people such as, somebody who's been disappeared for too long. So this is our chance. So when we met on Friday with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, we met with the woman who actually briefs him, and he had already made a phone call to Laos and wanted to know from us, what's the update? So one of the reasons I do work with you is I know you are grassroots based, or maybe rice roots. You're rice roots based in Laos. You do talk to your families, your neighbors. You risk things. They risk things telling you. And when they do that, we need to know how to get that information to the right people. So she's one person that I promised we'd follow up with. And she says, as long as you get me the most current and credible information, they will be able to take action. So we need to figure out a way to get knowledge and the information to the right people. We go from information to initiatives to institutions that then promote and protect human rights, and we can do that. Another one that's very valuable is Amnesty International. That was our second meeting. Amnesty International is valuable because they do get people released from prison. They write letters, they put pressure, they have credibility. Besides winning the Nobel Peace Prize, if Amnesty says something has happened to someone, governments know it is almost 100% true. And that is valuable. So we met with them, and what they promised was to talk about new ways. And that's something that I've learned too. Even though I'm excited and want to talk to people, a lot of times when I go to these big meetings, I just listen. Because no matter what, I know I don't know everything. And even at our brief Amnesty meeting yesterday, overlooking the General Assembly across the street, she said two things. One, because Europe has a new foreign minister for all of foreign affairs for the EU, they put a new person in Brussels just looking at human rights in the EU and the European Parliament. So that's good for Bruton being in Berlin. It's very easy for us to go there and to start lobbying and meeting with them. And they said, we'll put you in touch with Amnesty in Brussels. When you meet with Amnesty in Brussels, they know everyone in Brussels. And if we're their friends, we don't have to go to Brussels and try to ask people and hire expensive people. You are important people in this process. We just partner with them and say, we met in New York, they said to contact you, and this is the latest information, and what's the best place that we should go? So we need to go to Brussels often. The other thing they shared is Amnesty used to do everything in London. It's because that's where it's based. And it was founded, actually, the most interesting story. This guy was having breakfast with his mom. His name's Peter Benison. He was an attorney. And he was reading the newspaper, and he's like, I can't believe this. People actually got arrested in the southern part of Europe just for toasting to freedom. And he said, this has got to change. This is so wrong. And the best thing the mom said was, what are you going to do about it? And he just kind of caught off. She goes, yeah, what are you going to do? And he founded Amnesty International on his kitchen table with a Quaker, another person of religious faith, and a friend who was an attorney, and they created what is today Amnesty International. So it's a good example of civil society and grassroots. But it was that everyone is human, and everyone has rights. And because of that, nothing bad should be happening to people anywhere in the world. So you can easily say, we are Laos, we are part of the human family, we should also have rights, and everyone understands that. It's not asking for anything special, it's just asking to be treated equally. And so they also are now trying to move everything out of London. They're going to put their new specialists for Laos in Bangkok. So that's another thing that we need to do is when we go and do the Asean meetings, it's important once a year to go visit Bangkok because that's the regional space for the UN. And we know it's a little bit dangerous and people are worried about working in Thailand. But in Bangkok, there's lots that we can do to connect with the International Labor Organization, the Forum Asia NGO, Amnesty International will be based there now, Human Rights Watch, Freedom House, they're all there. And so we can definitely coordinate and work with them. I think that's valuable. And then, besides Amnesty, we met with the ISHR, International Service for Human Rights. And International Service for Human Rights focuses on human rights defenders. And like it or not, I know you guys want to get my title right, but by being here today, you're all human rights defenders. And you stand up yesterday in the march. Yesterday was good and bad in lots of ways. Best weather ever. But we actually went to 3 different protests in one day. Some of it was a little bit of luck. It was kind of like running with people on the metro. Look, that's that flag. We recognize that flag. Let's stop here for a little while. You know, but what was really important is we got lots of ideas. I mean, to sit outside the embassy was great because I studied that nice little area. It used to be a farm that belonged to a German. Well, because of World War II, they confiscated it. Now it's a park. So the coolest thing is, that's a pretty big open park. What we can do, and we were talking about yesterday, we could just have a Lao Freedom Party once a year. So Saturday is the Lao Freedom Party. We put up the flags, and you have our flags and their flags. the kids can play basketball, and on the swings, we can gather and talk like we do. Some people can make floating lotus and do what they do. And everybody can have a good time in showing just the stark reality of the difference of the street and where you are. Then that next Sunday, we have a training on how to lobby. And then, after that, Monday we go to Congress. So in 3 days, we can do all that. We also got lucky yesterday. It was Embassy Day. So either you're really blessed or we're just really lucky in doing everything right. But you would have never had anyone on those streets. We had everyone on the street. They thought you were on the same tour they were. What we can learn, though, is how to be better. As a protester, that's where I first got more famous, because everybody ever saw me, they thought, uh-oh, something's bad, and why is Joshua here? But I mean, there's things we can do. You know, you do a great job at social media, but you know, we should have just had a piece of paper to give to everyone walking by. Please like our Facebook page. Please email your senator and congressman and ask them what they're doing about Laos. Give people 5 steps, because anyone who talked to anybody yesterday, everyone's on your side. Everyone said, really? I didn't know, it can't be true. Wow, you said, go to this website, here's the information. Or, thank you so much for talking to us, here's 5 steps of what you can do, and be in solidarity, and we can stand shoulder to shoulder together. So, I think it'd be great to do that in the future. And ISHR is Human Rights Defenders. They help people who stand up for other people, because if no one stands up, then none of our rights will ever be realized. So you play a very important role. And there are certain opportunities that we can do at the UN. Every October, we can meet in New York. That's when the 3rd committee focuses just on human rights, meets at the General Assembly. That's valuable. So Tennessee, everybody can just come up north that time. But the Human Rights Council is where we have to go next, in Geneva. And it meets 3 times a year. September, March, and June. Every time they meet, they have 9 agenda items. We can speak on 5 of those without even having to change our words at all. Your issues are relevant to the world at the Human Rights Council. This summer, already in June, they're going to talk about corporate accountability, which we could look at with all the minerals being taken out of your rich land. And the other thing that we can concentrate on in September is actually human rights defenders. So these are all opportunities where many people, civil society, would side with you and want you to be part of them and work together, but also states. Just yesterday when we met with Amnesty International and ISHR, they told us which countries cared about these issues. So Norway's the sponsor. When you're in Geneva or here or in New York, we meet with the Norway government because they give lots of funds, but they put attachments on their funds. So these are important things that we can do. So these are just some of the things that came up. The final one that came up, which is valuable and offers so much that we need to do, is the specialized agencies. UNDP, the United Nations Development Program. When we met with them, they already talked about 3 things that are all brand new. They have a committee focused on extractive industries. They talked to us about the forests. They talked to us how they're trying to do things in the country, and they want to partner as well. But most importantly, they also talked about Indigenous rights related to the Hmong. And they said, give us information, and we'll work on that. Because what we can focus on is the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And I was fortunate enough to work on that earlier in my career. We were able to get that adopted at the UN General Assembly on 13 September 2007. It's been in existence for 5 years. But it's really important to use that. And even if you want to come, in 2 weeks, in New York, there's the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. It's called the PFII. And there for 2 weeks, you can speak on different agenda items about human rights in Laos related to Indigenous people's rights. So if you want to go, I can meet you there, or I can help you, and you can participate in that body. So what's really important to know about the mechanisms is what's your interest and where can you bring that initiative to, and I try to help translate that for you. And the final thing is coming up. And this is a chance, I think, for all of the different groups. And what I liked was I was fortunate enough that he was able to translate for me some of what was being said earlier is, I like your holistic approach to human rights and also a nada, a non-hierarchy approach. We're all equal here. We all have a say in this process. And what he said was, you don't have to become part of ADL and ADL is over you. It's a network. And what we want to do, especially with this process coming up, it's called the Universal Periodic Review, UPR. In 2015, in January, Laos will be reviewed by every country in the world for 3.5 hours. If we organize well, we can make sure the world really knows what happens in Laos. UPR happened last time, and you weren't there. Plain and simple. And they had a very easy go. The exam wasn't too hard, because they just asked Vietnam asked questions, and Cambodia asked questions, and they were best friends. But if we go and organize an 18-month campaign starting now, in August, I promise we can coordinate good things. There's 5 phases. Preparation. The preparation phase is we get to write a report. If you write a report and I write a report, we get 5 pages. But anyone in the world can write 5 pages on Laos. So everyone can participate, they're stakeholders. 2, every NGO gets 10 pages if they work in coalition. So we can do coalitions with all the different groups, ADL, Movement for Human Rights and Democracy, and write reports on human trafficking, on disappearances, on forest destruction, on everything. And we did that for the United States, and we had a little bit too much, but we had a book when we were done. But then the best thing is, it was a good model to show what is wrong. We also use social media, and the young people are better with social media. We had a video contest called Testify. So with Testify, you don't have to write a speech. Not everyone loves that. I know you guys like writing, so you're going to meet afterwards for 3 hours and write a statement. But most people don't like writing. My students don't like writing. The next generation is not good at that. But they're really good with flip cameras and cell phones. So we could call UPR Laos will be our campaign. Us promote rights. Video contests. Popular songs. Anything that people want to put up about what's going on. And we can even make it a contest. So that's good. That's the preparation phase. Interaction. We talk with the governments in Geneva. And the best thing there is, when you give them the questions, they will then ask them to the Lao government, but more importantly, make recommendations for the way forward. Then the consideration will take place in January 2015. And if we work together on the preparation and interaction phase, I guarantee the consideration for 3.5 hours will be a different one than the first one. And I'll help you coach through that if you want. And then after that, there's the adoption of the report in March. And then after that, we implement it in Laos. We want to be able to make that transition. So I thank you very much. The last thing I'd like to say is it's great to see my friend there. He came to our course last summer. We have a 1-week course here in Washington, D.C. for free. Anyone that wants to come can come. And anyone that wants to this year, anyone from Laos in the U.S. or anyone near, it's July 1st through 5th. So July 1 through 5, a free human rights training for an entire week, and you can bring the youth and be able to train them to then be able to move forward. So I've used my half an hour, but I thank you very much for your time. I tried to cover a lot of the things that we're doing in the Asean region, at the state level, where all of you live. But I think there's a lot we can do together more at the United Nations, and it's been a pleasure to be able to pursue justice with you so far. And it is amazing, it's only been a short time, but we've actually done a lot in that short time to be able to put Laos and liberty on the global agenda, and I look forward to working with you more. So, aloha, and thank you very much.
ซอยเมียวจะต่อไปอันนี้ก็เป็นมีการเสียสละของเพิ่นการประกอบส่วนของเพิ่นเขาจะต้องได้รับรู้เช่นเดียวกันถึงเป็นน้อยเพิ่นจะบ่ได้ว่าภาษาลาวบ่เข้าใจแต่ว่าเขาก็จะต้องได้มีโอกาสได้ข้อมูลเข้าใจต่อเพิ่นแต่ว่าเพิ่นจะขึ้นมา ที่ติดเสื้อในขึ้นมาข่าวกับติดขึ้นนั่นเดียวกัน Mr. Wiese, your turn now. You are behind the scene most of the time. Some people does not fully understand your valuable contribution in your effort in helping your wife for the Lao cause. And today, it is, and all of us, it is my privilege to introduce you once again to the crowd. Please.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's great to stay with you here all together. To stay with you for democracy and independence for Laos. The people all over the time ask me everything the same. They ask me, why do you work for us? Why do you support the Lao community for democracy? And I can give you a lot of answers. The first one is okay, Buntun is my wife and her way is my way. There's no question. The second one is, my father told me, son, you don't have to ask where the work is, you have to see it, and you have to make it. And I see, here is a lot of work. Really. The third one is, fighting for democracy and for justice, that's a tradition in my family. My old grandpa, he fights against the dictatorship at the German Empire, in the German Empire until 1918. He was a member of the Social Democratic Party. He was imprisoned for 4 or 5 years, I don't know, in this time, because he was a democracy activist. His son, he also was a member of the Social Democratic Party, and he also was a member of the Workers' Union in the 1920s. And he was in the resistance against Hitler. Yeah, he fights against the Nazis. And he also has been in prison for 2 years. And after he came out of the prison, he was a broken man. His son, my grandfather, he's a very big model for me. He was a soldier in the Second World War, and he sees all the crimes the Germans has to do for the Nazis. And he says, this dictatorship has made us criminals. We all have been criminals in this World War. And it's a shame for us. It's a shame. We have to do anything against it. And the first he has done after the Second World War, he also joins the Social Democratic Party. You see, Social Democratic Party in Germany, it's the oldest democratic party in Europe. It's founded in 1861. Okay. For the other guys who don't know, Social Democratic Party is the party of Willy Brandt, Helmut Schmidt, and Gerhard Schröder. Yeah. And I follow this tradition. For me, dictatorship, it is the most worst you can have for a government. It's the most worst system. And I see it's no especially for Laos. What about Laos? I think Laos has a key position. Without Laos, the other dictatorships in Asia, especially Vietnam and China, can't exist, I think. Why? The Chinese and the Vietnamese, they need a lot of raw material. They steal it from Laos. We all know it. Without these raw materials, the economy can grow. Another one is, the Chinese makes a very interesting politics in Laos. At first, they want to wash their dirty money in Laos. We know about the special economy zones in Laos, the so-called Chinatowns. They wash money. We see the casinos. Nobody goes in there. Where's the profit? The profit is washing money. Yeah? And this is another very interesting kind of politics for China. it is a special controlling of their own population. You know, in China it's prohibited to have more than one children. Yeah? When Chinese citizens go out of China for more than 2 or 3 years, they can have 2 or 3 children. After 3 years, they come back with these 3 children. And this is allowed. This is legal. Yeah? So China can control their population, and so China can control the, you call it, the age of the population, you know what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, this is very important, because the Chinese people, Chinese citizens become older and older. There are 2 less young people in China, but they need a minimum of young people, and so they get Chinese people out. It's not only Laos, we see it in Western Africa, they make it like a similar one. Yeah. And it is population control. I think when we can change Laos to a democratic system, and we can reach the aim for real independence of Laos, the Chinese power in that region is broken down, and it goes down. I believe the Vietnamese too, really. Actually, China and Vietnamese outside, everybody thinks they stay in concurrence, but I do not believe. There are no concurrence, they support each other. But it is behind the lines. The Alliance for Democracy in Laos, it is a new way for us, for the Lao community. In former times, the first years after I learned Ubuntu New, there has been a lot of Lao movements, and many people want to collect all the Lao movements and want to sample them without any result. In 2007, we learned new Dr. Sinn, and he has an idea. He says, let us build a new network. We need a network, an international. And in 2007, we start a small network work. It was a network work for children from North Korea who has to fly out of the country. For their flight goes, I think, 4 or 5 years. And after they go over the border to Laos to join in, to come in to Thailand, they has been imprisoned by the Lao forces. And the Lao forces told them, let's spend $3,000 each person and you can get free. And he says, oh, children, how old? 8 to 12 years. That's impossible. They didn't have $3,000. We must do anything. And so, all the people who has met in Vegas in 2007, all the Lao people, wrote to their government, wrote to all the embassies in their homeland, in Australia, in Germany, and in the US. The result was, an example, the German Foreign Ministry says to the Lao ambassador, hey, come up to me and please explain what's going on there. This is not all right. You have to keep these children free, all the children free. And hey, that was a big success. The children are free. They can go out, and now they're still alive. They are living in freedom. They are living in South Korea at their families. And this was the first big success for us. We see how important it is to build a network. In 2009, this network was born as the Alliance for Democracy in Laos, and I'm proud to be a member of this alliance. I'm very proud. Now we have such a lot of people here, such a lot of loud democracy movements. We have socialites here, we have conservative people, we have royalists here, we have such a lot, yeah? And they all came together. And the alliance, it's not only a network for us, it's more, it's like a school for us all. We learn about real democracy. Real democracy, what does it mean? That means at first, freedom of speech, okay, freedom of assembly, we do it here, yes, in this room. Freedom of press, you can have it there, Alliance for Democracy newspaper as an example. But it is more, it is respect. I respect, as an example, I'm a socialist, I respect that you are conservative, and you respect me that I'm a socialist. This is democracy. Acceptation. Acceptation. Yeah? We accept each other. We accept that we have different parties, different movements, but we have one aim. And this aim is real democracy, real freedom, real independence. These are our aims. And this we have learned here in the Alliance for Democracy. Now we have a new teacher, Mr. Joshua Cooper. Yeah? Sorry, you again. And I think he is a very good teacher. He learned us a lot about the systems, how to work at the institutes, how to work at the United Nations and so on. Yeah? And I think it's very important for us. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your support on this stage. This is why I'm staying here, and I think we are all together here for real independence and for real democracy. We are all pupils of the democracy. Thank you.